This story comes to us from seattletimes.com. And someone had asked me about this story, and I had told them, well, it's on my list. Today, I'm going to cover it. You know, in the state of Washington State, only 3 cops have been charged in on-duty deaths in the last 50 years. Yeah. But now there are 3 cops who are going to stand trial for homicide. Jury selection begins for the high-profile trial in the 2020 death of Manuel Ellis that could last the rest of this year, the trial selection, or the jury selection. But Pierce County Superior Court officials expect such high public interest that they visited the Minneapolis court where the officers criminally charged with George Floyd's death were tried. They say this is going to be such a high-profile case for these 3 cops. They went to Minneapolis, the prosecutors did, and officials did, just to kind of see how to handle this. I don't know. Just after 11 p.m. March 3rd of 2020, Manuel Ellis, a 33-year-old black man, was walking back to a sober living home with raspberry-filled powdered donuts and a bottle of water when he encountered police, who the police say he was behaving erratically. Well, he is going to a sober living home. Maybe he had a slip up. It happens. Within an hour, he died of oxygen deprivation while hog-tied and wearing a nylon hood over his head. Listen to this. He had been tasered, beaten, had a series of officers take turns sitting on his back. The Pierce County medical examiner ruled homicide. Now, 42 months after Ellis's death, Matthew Collins, Christopher Shane Burbank, and Officer Timothy Rankine are facing charges. Collins and Burbank stand charged with second-degree murder and first-degree manslaughter. Timothy Rankine only faces first-degree manslaughter, not second-degree murder. Prosecutors aim to prove Collins and Burbank had no legal basis to confront Ellis. Sounds almost like an Elijah McClain story, doesn't it? Going on in the West with those cops. But the prosecutors said they had no basis to use physical force that led to his death, that all 3 officers shirked their legal duty to help Ellis when he said he couldn't breathe. The medical examiner found a significant amount of methamphetamine in Ellis's system, and an autopsy revealed he suffered from heart condition. Here come the naysayers. Oh, see, he died from methamphetamine. See, it wasn't the cops now. You know, hey, officer, give me that boot. Yeah, here come the naysayers. Both were noted as contributing factors in Ellis's death and are likely to be central features of the officer's defense. Well, you also have to think, if they hadn't confronted him just walking home and threw him on the ground and did all that stuff to him, maybe he would have made it to the sober living home. They would have found that he had methamphetamine in his system and he could have been treated. He had a slip up. That's what they call those for addicts. All 3 officers have pled not guilty. They are free on bail and remain employed. Did you hear that? Listen to it. They've been charged with first-degree murder, first-degree manslaughter. They are all still employed and free on bail, and they are on paid leave by the Tacoma Police Department. They're basically on vacation collecting pay while having murder and manslaughter charges. I don't get it. Over the last 3 years, they've collected more than $1 million in salary. Thank you to the union. That's the union, by the way. That's all police union. Ellis's death became a Pacific Northwest touchstone in the national outrage after George Floyd's death in Minneapolis that reverberated throughout the summer of 2020. And remember, Seattle was the one who had, what was that? It was a city, and they wouldn't let ambulances in or nothing, and they basically took over the city. Remember, they had the old fenced out, and cops couldn't even get in there. And remember that? That was Seattle. It had that city. The case helped compel changes in Washington state law, including the establishment of a state-run unit to investigate potential crimes by police and the state's first ever effort to fully track deaths caused by police. Wow. They're going after him. The prosecution is the first against law enforcement officers under Initiative 940, which voters approved in 2018 and the Washington legislature strengthened the next year. It lowered the bar to prosecute officers for excessive force and required officers to provide first aid to people they've hurt. Whoa. Now, as you would imagine, this story is quite lengthy. I mean, really lengthy. And it goes down. If you have time to read it, it's pretty interesting reading, but it is really long. I'll put a link to this story in the description box. You can click that link. You can read the whole story. It would take me another 18 minutes just to go through this whole thing with you. But the meat of it is you have Manuel Ellis walking home. Doesn't say he was really committing a crime. He was just walking home. They stop him. He ends up dead. He's going to a sober living home. They say, well, he had methamphetamine in his system. Yeah, he's an addict. Welcome to the world of addiction. If you'd have let him go to his sober living home, he'd probably be alive today. And probably sober, who knows?